I didn't. I mean, I wasn't really thinking clearly. I'm either coming down with the same cold that the rest of my family have had, or I have a bowler.
Yeah, you probably don't have a bowler. There was an interesting stat that people keep tweeting that you're in more danger of marrying a Kardashian in America than you are of contracting Ebola, which is interesting.
Well, that seems unlikely because they are Kardashians are a fictional species from
Game of Thrones.
No, from the Star Trek universe.
Oh, of course they are. Yeah, with the ones that look like fish heads.
I don't know, but they're
Probably.
in Deep Space. That's Admiral Ackbar. You're thinking of.
It's a trap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a Star Wars
Yeah.
nerd. I'm surprised you'd make that mistake. What are they called? The Admiral Ackbars?
Oh, they're you put me on the spot there. It's a calamari, something like that. It's
Are they actually called the Mon Calamari?
That's it, something like that. It's very it's really on the nose.
Yeah, that's stupid. George Lucas is an idiot.
In when he was talking about the process of writing the prequels, this is how utterly careless he was with it. Apparently, just let his kids name shit.
Isn't that how he named everything?
Yeah, obviously just made it up because it's not a documentary.
Yeah,
but it's just he didn't care. As long as he got to play with some powerful computers, he was very happy. I'm such a cynic. Oh,
you're such a cynic.
Yeah.
I was the minute we started mentioning George Lucas, my eyes started rolling right out of my head.
I shouldn't be so hard on someone in his art.
But yeah, so the Kardashians, they're the guys with they're quite nasty when they first turn up. They turn up in Deep Space Nine, I think, and then they get like retrospectively.
Oh, they're the ones with the thick necks, got very thick necks.
Yeah, and ridges all over their faces. Not like Klingons who just have ridges on their forehead. The way you can tell they're proper bad guys is they've got ridges all over their faces.
Well, not in the original series. The Klingons were smooth-headed.
Yes.
Didn't they in Enterprise? They tried
inscrutable.
They tried to retcon that. How wasn't it like there was a storyline how the Klingons lost their ridges? It's like, why bother?
As I understood it, the reason for that I understood, because they got their ridges in the movies, didn't they?
Yeah, it was Ebola, wasn't it?
No,
they literally shit out their ridges.
No, it was that apparently the ones we'd seen up till that point were genetically engineered Klingons who were designed to be less, so that they could be like infiltrate and stuff like that.
That sounds like a lot of bollocks.
Yeah, but it's all a lot. I think we've established today. If we establish nothing else on this episode, we've established that most stories are made up, are bollocks, might as well be made up by George Lucas's kids.
They might as well. Maybe everything is made up by George Lucas's kids. Our friend Jane, apparently her dad used to like saying maybe life is just a dog's dream. Maybe we're all just part of George Lucas's children's imagination.
Why? I always wondered about that. Why a dog's dream?
Why not?
Well, that implies that dogs have much more sophisticated and confusing. Like I listened to a podcast recently where they were talking about it was called "We Have Concerns," and
that doesn't sound similar to any other podcasts I'm aware of.
And I think it's best if we don't draw attention to that.
I don't know what you mean.
And they were talking about scientists and measuring intelligence in animals, and how it's only in the last 20 years or so that they've stopped just trying to work out how intelligent, like just judging how intelligent an animal is by human standards. Yeah. Like if an animal can run a maze or can recognise words or whatever, we assume it's more intelligent. Yeah. But actually, we might just be making that particular animal dumber among its own.
Maybe.
You know, we might be robbing it of its instincts. It might be the best tracking dog, like the best dog at finding rotting wildlife to roll around in. Yeah. Which is probably, how dogs measure intelligence.
My brown Labrador, not Labrador. That's a different sort of thing.
It's not a thing at all.
It's a partially erect dog.
Is it?
Yeah, a Labrador. She loves to roll in poo, but my black Labrador can't work out how to do it. She'll basically approach some smelly poo, and then you'll see her she'll drop one shoulder and then drop the other shoulder, trying to work out how to roll in poo.
Does she roll the rest of the time?
Not really. No, she's a bit limpy as well at the moment. I'm very worried about her.
Oh, that's no good.
She's around somewhere.
So that might be a thing of intelligence. The one who can do it might be more intelligent than the other one.
Well, definitely, they say that dogs automatically assign roles for themselves, don't they? Whereas, like Lois, the black Labrador, good solid pack dog. You know, when we're out walking, she wants to walk with Nikki and I. Whereas every pack has a dog that goes out, basically not scouting, but checks for threats.
Yeah.
So when something approaches the pack, there'll be one dog that goes out. So Coda is that in our pack, which manifests itself in her wanting to cover her smell and running up the people and other dogs barking, which is glorious.
I think that might definitely be our little dog.
Possibly.
Our big dog likes to eat disgusting things, but would never dream of getting it on her coat.
No.
She's always immaculate.
Good.
Whereas the other one always smells of Johnson's baby shampoo because she's forever rolling in stuff.
Yeah.
I think we've started, James. If the listener, this is Two Grown Men, can't remember what number we're up to, 700.
Yes, 9.
709.
Yeah.
And if we sound a little bit different, that's because it's Sunday morning.
Yes.
We're both infirm one way or another.
Yes.
I have a bit of a headache, and I've just noticed that my neck, just a little twinge in my neck.
That's
just
not
a little
good.
twinge in my
That's
neck.
Not good.
And James is mentally ill. So
that's just very true.
So
I own it. It's fine.
So, and also it's Sunday morning, and we are recording in James's living room. These are always. I said to my wife,
"No, we're not. No,
not living room. It's kind of open plan. I get confused.
It is
the dining area.
This is what we'd call the dining area.
Okay, good. The dining area. I like recording, although the sound quality isn't always as good when we're here. It's worth mentioning that. I do like recording here. As I said to my wife this morning, the thing is, I really like recording shows at James's house at the dining table because we get to record a podcast, but I also get to have a cup of tea.
Yeah, so it has a bonus, doesn't it? It's good. Did you enjoy your...
James didn't have any milk.
We ran out of milk, and you did offer to go up to the shop, but I was like, my wife is buying milk. I don't want a surplus of milk in the house. And
surplus of milk?
Yeah, I don't want to... I heard a factoid about calcium-bearing products that apparently I might have been in one of the podcasts, so I'm basically cribbing other people's material.
It's fine, that's what podcasts do. Nobody really listens to podcasts who doesn't make podcasts. I'm going to call you Factoid Jim for this episode.
Thank you very much.
Which is a reference to another podcast, one that I'm not sure James listens to.
Is Kevin Smith on it?
No.
I don't listen to it.
It's called Thrilling Adventure Hour.
Oh, yeah.
The character Cactoid Jim is played by Nathan Fillion.
Oh, he's in programmes that people enjoy but I don't watch?
Yes, so I'm associating you with a very handsome man.
Yeah, that's...
Factoid Jim.
Yeah, I've got a face for podcasting without a shadow of a doubt. So let's say that...
Libidos.
For love. Let's just say yes, I am. But apparently... so I've got no way of checking this. This is... the evidence is, about sixth hand now? But apparently there was a massive overproduction of cheese in America in the last century, which obviously, famously, people on benefit get government cheese, which is a way of the government buy the overproduced cheese and give it on to the poor people, which is good. But apparently that overproduction caused the industry to require various marketing tactics to increase cheese consumption in the US, and I think cheese consumption in the US is very high compared to, but it's that weird American cheese generally, isn't it?
I've never tasted American cheese.
I've not been to America since I was 7 years old. It was a very long time ago.
Oh, America visiting because of kid privilege.
Yeah,
I've never been to America.
All of my privileges, but apparently it was promoted as being high in calcium and therefore good for you. But apparently this is not true. The calcium content is considerably less than milk. And much worse for you because of the way that your body absorbs the fats from cheese. So it's a lie by the American government, which is apparently what's made America so obese.
Everything you just said sounded really interesting, right up until the point where my brainstem started getting a tingle that possibly you were suggesting that cheese might have some flaws, and at the point that my brainstem got the inkling that you might be saying something even remotely negative about cheese, it just shut down. I didn't hear anything else you said.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't like many cheeses.
See, I didn't hear that at all.
I'm no cheese connoisseur, but I do like a nice Mornay sauce.
Is that called that because Rebecca de Mornay invented it?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, good. So we're recording on Sunday. This is because for various reasons we can't record on Monday. I can't remember what they are.
I'm going out.
Oh yeah,
tomorrow.
James.
I won't be about.
James is going out. He's being a social butterfly.
Apparently, we're going to see some heavy horses with Scarlett tomorrow because it's half term.
Heavy horses, aren't they? One of those hipster bands?
No, it's just some overfed horses in a field in Dorset, looking really sorry for themselves, wishing it would all end.
That sounds so depressing.
Yeah, but not really having the means to be able to off themselves. It's sort of quite sad. How does a horse suicide if it's in a field it can't get out of? There's only a sort of... I guess it tries to jump somewhere and breaks his... to be fair, actually, all you've got to do as a horse is break your
leg and then someone will turn up and...
Yeah, take care of it for you anyway. It's a bit like suicide by cop, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly like that.
Yeah.
Is Dave McKean local?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him. Did you ask him when you went to see him?
I don't think he is local, but I wondered why our particular cinema. Dave McKean is an artist. He's amazing. He's also a musician and a film director. But he doesn't do as much film directing as he does arting. I think because there's more money involved.
Does that make him a polymath?
Maybe. I don't know.
Or is that someone who's very good at counting parrots?
That's awful.
Thank you.
He's certainly more unassuming than most of the famous polymaths. Mm-hmm. By which I mean Stephen Fry.
I knew you meant Stephen Fry.
He's kind of famous. I guess he's famous really for the stuff he's done in comics, and especially the stuff he's done with Neil Gaiman. I personally think I described him on the other podcast we do as being the reason why Neil Gaiman, so many people know about Neil Gaiman, because he really did make Neil Gaiman's first few big comic projects look good. Mm-hmm. But he did there was a screening of his latest film at Harbour Lights, which is a local picture house cinema.
It's an art house cinema, isn't it? Yes.
And as I understand it, I think he's only done two. He was actually there to do a Q&A, a little introduction before and a questions and answers session afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think he only did a couple of them. So I wondered if... and his wife and son were there, so I wondered if he's actually local to Southampton, because that does happen sometimes. Well, not Southampton specifically, but to the area.
Yeah, the night after he was in Liverpool, though, wasn't he? He's doing the same thing, so...
Oh, so probably not then.
Who knows?
I don't know. It's a small country, really.
It is quite small.
But you wouldn't want to paint it.
No, definitely not.
But
it depends what the tool is. I mean, if I had a big enough roller, I'd be okay with it.
It was to see a film called Luna,
mm-hmm.
Luna, and it was a lovely film, actually, lovely and weird, and probably flawed. But it was one of those things where I've read a couple of reviews afterwards that were a bit negative about it.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, when they were so negative about it, I was like, well, I think you've... In one case, I thought, I don't know if you necessarily watched the whole film. Or in another case, I thought, well, I think maybe you weren't in the mood for that sort of a film. But it sank its claws into me so deeply because of the way it looked and because of the subject matter,
sure,
that I don't think I'm necessarily objective about it. But then, I mean, I think a lot of films are like that. You know, I think that if you like if you have an emotional resonance with and connection with giant robots that transform into vehicles,
yeah,
and for no apparent sensible reason perform slapstick,
yeah, and move so fast that you can't tell what's going on.
And have an incomprehensible script and plot, then you'd probably feel the same way about the Transformers films, and I don't. Yeah. So, but yeah, the story. The reason I mention it here is it has some bearing on Two Grown Men-iness.
Okay.
In that at the core of the film, or at least the inspiration for the film, was someone losing their child. Okay. Not losing, their child dying when it was 1 day old.
Okay.
And apparently this happened to a friend of Dave McKean's years before, and although he didn't, he ended up talking to the father of that child a couple of years later, and basically discussing the grief and the surreal, the intense and surreal experience of it, and it stuck with him. But he didn't want to tell that. He wanted to do something because it stuck with him, but he didn't want to tell that story because that was their story. So it's a kind of a fictionalized version. It's kind of a fictionalized version of that story. It has lots of other elements to it as well. There's a heavily... it's one of those interesting films as well. I think maybe because I think of Dave McKean as an artist and I've read comics by him as well, but definitely because he was there too. I spent a lot of the film... There are two male characters in it, both artists, and they have lots of arguments with each other, and I spent a lot of the film working out which was being a stand-in for him at any given time, because almost any writer writing anything puts themselves into the stuff they do. So I mean, that's kind of a given, but in this case, but basically the story is the couple who lost the baby, whose baby died, have withdrawn from their social group almost completely, and so what we see at the beginning of the film is that they have been invited. They've finally decided to accept an invite to go and see an old art school friend of theirs and his young wife or girlfriend, I think wife, in this very remote house that's by the sea. And even before the trauma of losing the child, even before that, you get the impression that there are issues, there are fault lines in the relationships between these three older people, and then the younger woman is kind of dealing with like that as well. But the artist whose house it is they're going to visit, and the film's quite cruel to him. He's referred to quite cruelly by the other characters a lot of the time. The film and the characters tease him and talk about him quite negatively a lot. But it's in his house, and all of the art in the house that's by him is Dave McKean art. And in a lot of cases, there are actual books that Dave McKean has done the art for,
sure,
but with the name of that character put onto it. And so it was interesting because for a chunk of the film, I was trying to work out, well, is this how Dave McKean, like, is this fictionalized version? How close is this character supposed to be to him? He has a similar career arc, seems to have, and stuff like that. And who is the other guy supposed to be? Is it supposed to be the friend? Is that the relationship that, the friend who lost the child? There was a point in the film where I started to think, are these both Dave McKean? Is it basically Dave McKean having some of these conversations, him having an argument with himself, sure, him giving himself a really hard time? And so I found that, I mean, it sounds like it's really indulgent, but like self-indulgent, but I really like that stuff. I find that quite fascinating. So it was this weird mix of, it was dealing with bereavement and grown-up relationships between people not being any more straightforward than like relationships between teenagers, really. Sure. Yeah. And really deeply held but quiet animosity. So people really having things they really dislike about each other, but that clearly haven't impacted on them being friends, close friends for their entire lives. But it was kind of mixed as well with this pushing and pulling between reality and fiction, and this argument about reality and fiction. So at times, maybe some people might find it a bit pretentious. It was totally in my wheelhouse. But the stuff about losing a child was pretty intense. I was quite grateful. I didn't go and see it with Amy, and I think that was probably the right call. But at the same time, I was quite grateful because it didn't ever get as intense. That side of it never quite got as intense as it could have.
Sure.
But what was interesting for me from the perspective of us on the show was this relationship between these two men and how they can be so... I'm not saying this is us, I'm just saying between two grown men.
Are you trying to tell me something?
No.
Very
and
nervous.
wow, I didn't even mean to name the show when I just said that.
Yeah.
But this relationship between two adult males,
Yes.
I thought was handled really well. They're really different, but they're clearly they're held together. It's completely different from us actually, because they're held together by a lifetime of experience. They've known each other since they were children, and now they're like in their 40s and 50s or whatever. And but it's fascinating, and if you get the chance to see it, it's well worth watching. Visually, it's amazing. At times, quite obscure, but more so, I think, than with Mirror Mask, which was the film that Dave McKean did with Neil Gaiman, that Neil Gaiman wrote before. He's, I guess, modern special effects techniques allow him to do a much more fluid job of mixing his art with reality, if that makes sense.
Sure.
There are 4 really good performances at the middle of this film, and at some point nearly all of them have surreal moments where they see... This is where the grief thing comes in, that he really picked up on, was that the grieving couple were saying that just nothing... They made connections. Everything seemed... Every item and every object and every situation seemed to hold this much deeper symbolic meaning to it, because I guess everything's so raw that you're just taking everything in and twisting it around a little bit. And when the people have those moments in the film, you slip seamlessly into this vision of these Dave McKean painting style visions, but real, but animated. And it's amazing. Visually, it's a really amazing film. And I don't know if I've said to you before, but one of the things that I really like, or all I really need from a film, especially that sort of a film, is a film that has effects in. If a film shows me something that I haven't seen before, or that I couldn't imagine for myself, that it looking that way, then that's all I really need. If it does it 2 or 3 times in a film, then I'm going to go back and rewatch that film often. It's part of the reason why, for all its flaws, I'm okay with Prometheus and a few other films like that. As long as there are a couple of moments where I'm like, okay, that was weird, or something like that, I'm generally okay.
I haven't watched it all the way through yet, because it gave me the heebie-jeebies.
Prometheus?
Yeah.
Well, you see, that's probably a selling point for a film.
It was creepy.
If it gives you any sort of reaction at all,
that's true.
That's fine. The Q&A was... The questions and answer session was interesting.
Did you queue?
No, there was no queuing. My friend Oki and I were actually on the same row. There weren't that many people in the cinema.
Did you ask a queue?
I didn't, and I really wanted to.
Okay.
I'm glad, because the things I wanted to know kind of got answered, but I felt really nervous. I felt suddenly really self-conscious.
Could there be anything worse than being in an auditorium full of people, and you go up and all of your questions be, my questions were the same as, what's your favourite colour? It'd be very difficult.
So if you had to queue to ask your question, Q&A, does it stand for Q and ask?
I think it stands for Queef and Anus.
Okay, good. Right, so there weren't that many people in the cinema. The guy who... and I'm sure all the Harbour Lights staff listen, so I just want to preface this by saying it was very sweet, but the guy sort of comparing the screening at the beginning and at the end was quite young and excited and maybe a bit like enthusiastic and nervous, and so was doing that thing of asking questions but not really taking in the mood of the the person asking the questions.
Okay.
Dave McKean. I guess I was quite surprised. I didn't really have a sense of Dave McKean beyond that his art's amazing. I haven't really listened to his music, but his art's amazing, and I've really liked his comics. The handful of comics I've read by him, and Cages, which is the one big thing he's done, show that he's actually got a real way with language and with storytelling, as well as it's not just when he works with Neil Gaiman or with Grant Morrison or someone like that. He's very experimental, but also very his work's very experimental, but his writing is very grounded.
Okay.
And I didn't really know what he'd be like. I thought he'd be taller for some reason.
Okay.
And for some other reasons, because his work is so singular and unusual and kind of, I hesitate to use the word, but the only word I can really think of is visionary, in that it's not like there are lots of people doing work like him now, but when he started, no art looked like that, you know.
Sure. And
I know that he does lots of different things, so I think I kind of expected him to be more arrogant, not necessarily in a negative way, but I expected him to be more sort of
have more self-confidence, maybe?
Confident, yeah, and actually he was just lovely. He was just like he's very thoughtful, and he took his time before answering all the questions. You know what? I don't know if this doesn't necessarily sound particularly positive, but I do mean it to. Whenever you saw Mel Smith being interviewed,
sure,
you know how Mel Smith's persona was kind of being a bit dumb and slow-witted and maybe a bit obnoxious.
Sure.
But when you heard him being interviewed, he took his time over everything, and he was very thoughtful about everything, and quite quiet, actually. He sounded a lot like that. I don't know if there's I don't know if they're from similar areas in their voices, but there was something about him that reminded me of that. Only he was smaller than Mel Smith.
Really, what could you fit him in? Just to give us an idea.
You could fit him in a... I don't know, I'm looking around your room for some sort of... You could definitely fit him in this room. You could probably fit about 50 of them in this room.
Wow.
But they'd be crammed up really close to each other. I mean this area, not the whole room, because it's open plan.
Okay.
You could, if you took all the shelves out of that cabinet...
That's a Billy bookcase we're looking at here.
Yeah.
One of the narrow ones.
Maybe if he scrunched his shoulders in, he'd probably fit in there, and then you could fit another one of him on top.
All right, so he's about 3 foot tall.
No.
4?
No, that's wrong. Maybe my sense of...
Is he about the same size as you? Because you're quite hobbity, aren't you?
I think he might be about the same size as me. I hesitate to say hobbity. I wouldn't say that Dave McKean is hobbity.
Could you see his feet?
No.
So you cannot confirm...
This sounds like a trap.
Whether he was or what. It's a trap! Back to Admiral... Everything goes back to Admiral. All roads lead back to Admiral Ackbar.
It was amazing listening to him. I've been really lucky... or maybe I'm just really open to hearing like crazy ideas that make perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
But with doing the special mini episodes of the We Have Issues, the other podcast we do, and hearing Akira the Don's particular slant on language, and then hearing Cy Spurrier talking about comics being scalar and stuff like that, scaling up and down. And then hearing Dave McKean talk about how he, as much as he loves working with Neil Gaiman, he thinks that the way round they tell stories, they look at fantasy and reality, is he thinks that looking at Neil Gaiman's work, that the normal bits, the real resonating bits, mundane bits in Neil Gaiman's work, are there to deliver the fantasy. The fantasy is what it's about.
Sure.
Whereas Dave McKean is much more interested in looking at the real world and finding fantastical elements in it. I'm doing lots of stuff with my hands, and I'm noticing your hands. You're following me. Yeah. And I guess I hadn't really thought of it before, but that's I think that's why I really like Dave McKean's work, and I've found that as I get older, Neil Gaiman's work kind of leaves me behind a little bit.
Sure.
Because I'm more interested in people finding weird little things about real life, rather than a normal person suddenly finding a whole world that exists under ours and then going off and fighting fairies and stuff like that.
I guess, though, it's the sort of person that you are, isn't it? Because I had a bit of a weird moment with a friend who's more inclined towards the mystical. Mm-hmm. We're very like-minded in terms of the way that we interpret life, the universe, pretty much everything, except I have a very sort of... I believe in sort of kind of matter-of-fact, provable, scientific view of the universe, which kind of converges with where she comes from. But she has this mystical... She believes in energies, and she was telling me about, being able to see people's auras. Stuff that I kind of don't believe in. I can't prove it's not true, but I instinctively, because she was talking about people who've been able to photograph auras and so forth. I didn't go on to challenge her, although maybe...
Well, because why would you? It makes her happy.
Actually, because of where I am in terms of my mental health at the moment, I was actually very snippy and quite rude to her, which I had to apologise for later on. But I don't believe in it because, well, if it was true, could it not be reproduced in laboratory conditions? As far as I'm aware, it hasn't. Although I always find people who believe in these things go, no, that's what they want you to think. But this person's done it. This one maverick's done it. These it's a bit like someone was talking the other day about the climate change debate.
Yeah.
And you have hundreds of scientists who believe one thing in terms of climate, but because of the way debate works in this country, you'll have one representative of the vast majority and one representative of a really, really small minority arguing the other.
You're talking about balanced arguments in journalism and how that's seen as balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas you should have, 4 or 5 people from the scientific community.
And half a person from the other side.
Maybe, the child of a person who doesn't believe it.
Once you get into hard science, like properly scientifically provable stuff, like climate change and stuff like that, it kind of skews my feelings on this. But I think maybe, and I'm literally just thinking this on the fly, the thing I feel about atheists, and also about this whole, like, modern atheists, and this whole battle between people who think of themselves as rationalists and people who don't, is I think maybe there's a middle point where intellectual exploration reaches scientifically provable stuff, and kind of stops there. And under that, people think all kinds of crazy things because they're too dumb. Not dumb, they're too flaky or whatever to make it all the way to objective scientific truth. But then there's a level above objective scientific truth where, like, you go beyond that. Well, but it's just nonsense. Why would people believe this nonsense?
Are you talking like quantum and theoretical physics, that sort of thing? Because that's all speculation and
but actually, kind of that like, you get to a point where there are people who believe, well, if you can't prove something, then what's the point of it? Like, then it doesn't exist, and anyone who believes it is an idiot. And then there's another point beyond that where it's like, well, but if you can't disprove something, then why would you stop people? Unless people are actually hurting someone in the name of what they believe, what's actually wrong with them believing it? And what if, and I don't know if I've said this on a podcast before, but what if the ability to imagine stuff that doesn't exist is what actually makes us different from animals?
I think you're onto something, because one of the things that worries me most about, and the reason I had to go back to my friend and I had to apologise to her, is because I think what drives I like things, although I get in a little bit of trouble, because obviously I don't know enough about the subject to be definitive in terms of, it's just that scientific way of thinking kind of informs my world view, but only in so much as I'll watch a couple of Brian Cox documentaries and Carl Sagan's Cosmos, take what I like from there, go, that'd do me. That keeps me from having the screaming abdabs at night. I'm quite comfortable with that, but I don't go into it. But I'm actually jealous of my friend who has this slightly more open attitude towards a slightly more mystical. I don't even know if that's the right way of putting it, but she believes that potentially there are other energies that drive us that we don't know about. I wish I had that sort of faith and belief that I could open myself up and accept that might be the case, rather than I just want to live in my very closed worlds of facts as I perceive them. And like I say, I'm not even in possession of all the bloody facts anyway.
But I mean, you found your level, and it makes you happy. That's basically a religious...
Yeah, but it makes for quite a narrow worldview if I'm not careful.
I think that's interesting because you said that she believes in these energies.
Yeah.
And actually science, I can't remember what it's called now, so I feel a bit stupid. Science has those things. It's got like the God particle that we assume exists because there's a space. Dark matter as well. It must exist because there's this whole area that we don't understand. Yeah. So there must be something there. And I think actual true scientists, well, not true scientists because that's a bullshit metric.
And it's not for you to decide.
And it's not for me to decide. Right. But I think at its core, science is quite open-minded about stuff. It's a very specific reading of science that says if you can't prove something, then it doesn't exist. Science is the whole way that we end up proving things is because someone believes that it must exist. Yeah. Because there's this area that doesn't, there are lots of accidents, like we discover antibiotics or whatever there are lots of things that we've discovered by accident.
Leaving cheese out.
Yeah, cheese again.
Probably cheese.
There are lots of things we discover by accident, but at the same time, a lot of it is 2 or 3 scientists believing something that no one else in the scientific community believes, and spending 10 or 15 or 20 years of their life trying to find it. And do you know what I mean? I think without faith.
And there's the divergence though, because obviously those scientists spend years trying to prove it, and then open it up to a peer community to review it. Whereas if someone believes something is an article of faith, well, it doesn't need to be peer reviewed because I believe it is my faith. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky. But I worry about how quickly I write something off as mystical new age bollocks. I don't want to hear it.
Yet the stuff you repeat from Cosmos,
but
stripped of context, sounds.
But it's not. It's that's what I say. We're kind of from the same place. Brian Cox in his latest series talks about we all come from the same thing at the very beginning of time. The Big Bang. There was a singularity. Not a singularity. That's a black hole. But there was a single entity, a single thing that exploded and turned into all of us. Stuff like that I kind of find, I kind of like the hook to that. I find that quite settling and calming. But you're right, stripped to the context, it's wishy-washy new age bullshit.
Well, it's a creation myth.
Yes.
I mean, it's one central point from which everything comes. You can sort of see...
But then actually... sorry. Cox and Sagan, I suspect others do it, seem to gravitating back to Hinduism. Because Hinduism obviously has the concept of a constant wheel of existence, a bit like Battlestar Galactica. Whereas a lot of this sort of new age mysticism seems to come from things like Buddhism and Hinduism and so forth. So it's two sides of exactly the same coin, isn't it?
I mean, I think that the thing I keep coming back to, and one of the reasons I have so much trouble with people like Richard Dawkins, the really outspoken atheist, is I think that they think that the thing that separates us from all of the other creatures is our ability to rationalise. Yeah. But I think the one thing we've done that none of the animals have done that we know we've done that none of the animals have done is we invented God. Yeah. We are capable of imagining things that don't exist. Yeah. Whereas I don't know, I maybe don't know enough about animals, but
Oh, I don't know. The other day you were talking about them as though they were far superior
That
to
is
human
not
beings.
what I said.
I had you down in my very small group of friends as the go-to man for animal matters. You're very much like the Johnny Morris or Terry Nutkins of my circle of
Not
close
Steve
friends.
Irwin.
No, because I hope you never get stabbed through the heart by a big fish.
But like animals are capable of mental illness, really. Mainly the domestic ones, when they've spent a bit of time around us.
Yeah, animals that spend an awful lot of time with humans.
They spend it, but actually, most of the things a dog does, you can see come from the dog's perspective, or from a rational thing. They've done something before. Yeah. It gets certain results. They get stuck. Yeah. Like the older of my two dogs, she used to get my leftovers when I finished a meal. When it was just her and me, she used to get my leftovers. So, despite the fact that hasn't happened for 10 years, she still tries to hang around the dinner table. But then, every now and then someone will drop something on the floor and she'll get some food. Yeah. There's normally, you can see the core of cause and effect, an understanding of cause and effect at the bottom of what most animals do. Yeah. They come to you for comfort when they want comfort. They come to you and do things when, do things to get you to feed them and stuff like that.
I think the difference is between us and animals, of course, though, is we have the ability to eventually, if we have a big enough sample of evidence, to say it happens once, but then we sit at a table and wait another 10 times and it doesn't happen, we're assumed that it doesn't happen very often, probably won't waste our time.
Yeah, I mean, they're like gamblers. They're a bit like those people in Las Vegas or in casinos who go straight to the slots and just keep doing the slots on the off chance. But then that might just be... I don't think dogs in the wild spend that much time waiting around for a potential food source that doesn't deliver. I don't know if wolves really do that.
No, they're busy hunting all the time.
Because they know that gets the that gets the effects they need, because they've evolved to the point where they are the best possible version that we've got at the moment.
I think this is a really difficult area, because obviously wolves are driven by instinct rather than by making rational decisions necessarily about why they want to go hunting. They're able to organise, and I think you look at the way they hunt. Potentially, there's learnt behaviours there, but the desire to hunt is instinctive. I think it's genetically hardwired into them.
Oh, sure, okay, but at the same time, instincts are kind of a lot of the time instincts are based on experience that you don't intellectualise.
Here's a weird one. There was a really good documentary recently about cats on the BBC. And they're talking about cats and how they communicate. And it's very interesting. I found out when they've got their tail up, that was generally if they're in a group of cats, that's how they greet each other. But they're solid. Anyway, that's immaterial what I was going to talk about there. Let's leave it there. Let's park it. Let's move on. Okay. Meowing. Yeah. Cats don't meow to each other. They never meow to each other. The only time a cat meows when not influenced by humans is when it's with its mother. But cats have learned over the years to meow at humans to indicate they want something. Yeah. But it's kind of, cats haven't had enough time being domesticated to... It's weird how that's become hardwired into cats. I was sort of thinking, is it because they're not truly domestic in the way that dogs are domestic? So do they all have to learn that meowing works with humans, or is that...
But if they did, I think they'd learn it very quickly, in the first few days.
And of course they're still infants when you...
Well, and we infantilise them a certain amount as well, don't we? Yeah. So they meow at their mother to get food and stuff like that, and then they keep meowing at us to get what they want.
If that doesn't work, then they try and trip you up and break your fucking neck.
That happens too. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know enough about animals to say this.
My cat loves getting under my feet. He hates me so much.
I do think he's the only other man in the house. He's probably vying for dominance.
Sorry.
But I think instinct, most of the time when we talk about instinct, it's sublimated experience, isn't it? It's experience that we aren't quite... It's kind of experience and how we believe things are supposed to be kind of played through each other. So I'll get a bad feeling from someone, but it's normally because they remind me of a whole bunch of other people who I've had bad experiences with in the past or something like that.
Oh, so that's what drives people like Nigel Farage, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Or with him, it might be upbringing.
Yesterday on Twitter, Peter Serafinitz compared him to Admiral Ackbar.
But
it all comes back to Admiral Ackbar.
You forced that one a little bit, though.
I don't think so. Farage came out naturally. I think that that was perfectly natural. I need more tissue. I'm sorry. I've soaked the hell out of this one. I need to get another one. I need to dab up my nose, Nick.
James is.
I feel like the dude from the old Lockets advert.
James is just going to go get some tissues and make me a drink. Apparently, he's going to do it as loudly as possible. So this is a good time for me, I think, to just point out that I've really had quite a bad headache and my ear feels a bit funny, so my balance isn't quite right, and that's been the case for the entirety of this episode so far. So I'm not entirely sure, listener, if anything I've said has made any fucking sense at all. And James, I could ask James, but he's even less equipped to tell me if I'm making any sense than I am.
I don't know what you're talking about.
See, but he never does. So that's meaningless. So listener, if you can send us an email telling us if this is the worst or best episode we've ever done, that would be brilliant.
I just assume that you take so much ownership for your opinions that you've obviously thought it out very... I refuse to believe that you're ever spitballing.
That's very kind of you to say, James. So, listener, if you would like to tell us that anything either one of us has said is nonsensical or amazing or mind-blowing or stupid or, oh my God, everyone else has been saying this for the last 20 years, you can do that by sending us an email at...
it's 2gmpodcast@gmail.com.
That's accurate. You can also talk to James or I on Twitter. I am Nixsight, Nixsight.
I'm James Mom, but I wouldn't bother. I'm really not there very much at the moment.
You'll be back, though.
Yeah, I hope so.
And there is a Twitter account. I think it's TGM Pod.
Yeah, go on.
We don't use it a lot. We mainly use it to tell you about the episodes. Yeah. You can listen to all of the past episodes and find the show notes for this episode and all of that stuff.
So if this is your first one, there's some other material for you to make a considered opinion.
Yeah, exactly. A scientific opinion.
Yeah, and maybe listen to other podcasts too. Benchmark us against those as well.
But mainly listen to us.
Yeah.
That's twogrownmen.net. We've also got a Facebook page. And I haven't been to Google Plus in a really long time. No. But we've got a Facebook page. You can find us on Facebook, probably just by searching for Two Grown Men. But I've got links to that on the site. You can subscribe to us at iTunes or Stitcher, who just got bought out by Deezer, whatever that is.
I didn't know that.
No, I got an email. And we also post episodes on SoundCloud and in various other places. So wherever you like to listen, you can listen. Do engage with us, though. We literally don't know if what we're saying about any of the stuff we're saying it about is not... The only thing we can be certain about is when we're talking about our own children and experiences. Everything else is just nonsense.
I'm not entirely convinced this is real life.
It is real life, James.
I'm genuinely convinced that this is the fevered imaginings of George Lucas's...
dog.
Offspring.
That wasn't me gearing up to finish. It was just a good time for the admin. That was the admin, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so you've totally caught me out now. I thought we were gearing up to finish. Psychologically, I've wound down.
We haven't talked about our children at all. We are supposed to kind of try.
She's gone out.
That's what she's done this week.
It's our first half term, which is
exciting.
It is. I didn't expect to be off work for it, but I am. So I think we're going to try to take advantage of a little bit of time with her, which is very nice. I think the much put off plan to go to the Natural History Museum is going to happen on Friday.
In London?
In the London.
Blimey.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I haven't been there in years.
Potentially terrifying. And yeah, some heavy horsemen. I'm looking forward to it. It's hard to believe she's gone through a whole half a term at school, but the speed the rapidity of her development is just makes my head spin at the moment. She's more articulate. She seems to think more clearly. She's more devious.
Yeah.
Certainly more willful. But it's wonderful to sort of watch this really sort of rapidly developing individual.
Are you going to be going on the tube?
Probably, yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I think you're fine as long as you've got a really refined what happens if we get separated on the tube plan.
Yeah.
And normally it's, if you're on the platform, just stay on the platform and Mummy and Daddy will come back for you.
Well, my plan when I go to London with people like that is, well, don't rush. If you don't rush, you tend not to get separated.
Yeah,
it's
true.
when you get sucked into this mindset of you have to rush for everything. If you do that, that's when things go wrong. So you stay calm and, you know, if the door looked like they're about to close, you just wait. There'll be another one in 2 minutes.
There's no need to rush.
No.
And so you still really notice development at her age, at Scarlett's age.
Absolutely.
Because at Noah's age, he's so small and can't really do anything on his... Well, he can do lots of things on his own now, but you notice every stage really, really clearly. One of the reasons I'm a bit zoned out today, James and listener, is that one of the things Noah has worked out he can do is that at 2 a.m. in the morning, when I am... 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. As opposed to that 2 a.m. I was explaining something that obviously is very self-evidently amusing. Failed really badly at it as well.
My friend, one of my friends yesterday kept referring to Noah as a 16-month-year-old.
Brilliant.
Which I just thought was brilliant. And I pointed it out to him and he couldn't help it, he kept doing it. Yeah, I mean, last night he worked out that one of the new things he can do is at 2 a.m. When I am sleeping in the same room as him because of my snoring, he can just start yelling for no real reason and then not stop when I pick him up. I'm feeling a bit zoned out.
What do you think he's trying to communicate you while you're snoring loudly in his room in the middle of the night?
I can't imagine.
No.
He loves it. He doesn't mind me snoring. I don't snore that bad. I've got medical proof that I don't snore that bad.
Do you carry a certificate around with you?
Doctors, I believe you were there in the aftermath of it. Doctors put me under for 15 minutes to try and force me to snore, and I like with drugs, and I didn't snore. Yeah. So I don't snore. It's all a nonsense.
So they tried you once for 15 minutes. They're not very good scientists.
I think they put me. I think they're strapped for time. I don't know. Yeah.
Bring the snoring drugs out. I don't believe in snoring drugs. I think that's new age bullshit. I'm not having it.
Maybe
probably sell it in that shop up the road.
Maybe it isn't the Magic Earth one around the corner.
Actually, I know the owner. I shouldn't be nasty. Magic Earth is an excellent for all of your new age needs. Magic Earth on Shirley High Street in Southampton is the one-stop shop for all your crystal and joystick needs.
I used to live just around the corner from it. I don't think you're allowed to tell people that she sells crystal meth out of there.
I didn't say. Yeah, no. There's an interesting. You've seen this controversy. With regards to the Breaking Bad toys, that a mother in Florida got a petition together to stop Toys R Us selling Breaking Bad characters. And who's the chap that isn't Bryan Cranston in it? I want to say RuPaul, but that's not it.
Aaron Paul.
That's it. He is trying to get a counter petition together to force Toys R Us to restock them, saying that they sell Barbies, which are equally damaging. Admittedly, Barbies aren't accessorised with crystal meth, which is the breaking. But he did also say, because the Barbie argument didn't really hold water for me, but he did mention, well, you sell video games.
Yeah, well, I mean, they sell and toys with guns and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is an element of. My first instinctive knee-jerk reaction to that was, well, obviously toys from Breaking Bad, which is a very adult show, you know, when they've got guns and crystal meth with the characters is clearly wrong. But then I didn't really think about the hypocrisy in video games and also weapons that they sell as well.
Maybe his argument is a bit broken unless the point he was trying to make is that they shouldn't be selling broken bad toys and they shouldn't be selling all of those other things.
I mean, I was also very suspicious because presumably he's going to be making some money from it. So he's got quite a vested interest in them selling them, I imagine. Because, I was going to speculate on his career, and I think that's that. Why would I do that? That's ridiculous.
My knee-jerk reaction to that really is that the problem is that Toys R Us market. It's not in the name of the store, but they push all of their marketing towards children.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with there being Breaking Bad toys that can be sold in places where adults can get them.
Oh, like there's a place up the road from where we're recording today called Adult Gift Shop. They could probably sell them there.
Yeah, they could sell them in places like that. Or in places like Forbidden Planet that aren't specifically geared towards children. But yeah, any argument that includes Barbie and toy soldiers and stuff really just points out that those things aren't particularly great things to be in a place that's marketed to children. Toy Soldiers
was yours, by the way, rather than I don't think Toy Soldiers were his.
No. They weren't. They were mine. Yeah, but the fact that there are toys with guns and stuff like that. I mean, I don't actually have a problem with toy guns necessarily. So, but there is an argument that they aren't a positive gun. They are a representation of something that isn't a positive thing. So, a positive childlike thing, really.
Well, guns, it's difficult, isn't it? You got one pointed at you or someone you love, or in fact anyone. They're a bad thing, but they look like they're an awful lot of fun to shoot.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, if all of the other kids, if like one kid has a toy gun, and they are scaring all of the other kids, well, the only way the other kids, basically those other kids aren't going to be scared of that one kid with a toy gun if they've all got toy guns as well. So maybe the problem isn't like less toy guns. Maybe the problem, maybe the solution isn't less toy guns. Maybe the solution is more toy guns.
Yes, that's something we should, maybe should have a 2GM campaign.
Campaign for more toy guns. Yeah. Oh, and over the last few weeks, I have alluded to a friend and work colleague of mine having a baby, or his wife having a baby. Yeah. A lot of those conversations have had to be cut because I have got carried away and excitable about them.
And he threatened to sue you, didn't he?
No, he didn't. I preempted. He threatened to sue everyone, though, so I preemptively removed that stuff from
Will you have to remove this, though? Because will he be litigious about us claiming he's litigious?
I don't know. It's wheels within wheels. It gets complicated at this point, and I don't really know what goes on in his head most of the time. No. But yeah, my friends Alex and Lou, we went and saw their baby yesterday, and them. I mean, the baby wasn't there on her own. She's about 5 weeks old. She's very cute. Yeah, but it made me kind of both excited and a little bit freaked out about the fact that we've got another baby on the way, because I guess I've spent a lot of time around very small babies in the last couple of years. Yeah. But more recently, I've spent a lot of time around 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds and stuff. Yeah. And seeing a 5-week-old baby and how tiny and fragile and effectively useless they are at that point was kind of when you see one, it's really difficult to imagine your baby was ever that size.
Have you maxed out and now you're regretting having another child? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. No, I can see how you might infer that from what I said, or imply that. I don't know. No, but they are really small, and I kept looking at Noah. Kept coming over to see what was going on. He didn't get jealous of Amy holding the baby, which was quite good. But he kept coming over to see what was going on, and I was looking at him and looking at the baby and thinking, how are you ever that size? He's only a 16-month-old. We had 14-month-old.
We had friends over last night of a baby, pretty much I think like a week or so difference between them and Noah, and he was feeding her just before they brought a travel cot, and they put her down in the travel cot when it was her sleepy bedtime, and he was feeding her. I was looking at him feeding her, thinking, shit, I used to have to do that. And it seems like a lifetime ago. Scarlett is so sort of independent. It just seems a world away. It's sort of.
It's really weird. And I mean, Noah's not fully independent yet, but like I can chuck him in the air, and he goes on the swings and loves it. And we were playing on the slide and stuff like that. And he looks like a little boy now, which is really weird. Like when he stood up, he looks quite tall. So, I mean, compared to me, I am quite.
He is taller than you already, which is remarkable.
It is pretty impressive. Yeah. But that might be that I'm shrinking because he's taking my life force.
Probably. I mean, he is going to grow up and kill you, so.
Yeah, but that's
metaphorically.
All sons do that. Yeah. I don't think we've got enough time to talk about the thing. Sorry. Yeah. But we can. James had an article that he wanted to talk about. We will probably try and talk about that next week.
I should probably reread it because I'm not very good at concentrating at the moment, and I
haven't read it yet.
No, it's good.
So,
as a result, though, his teaser. As a result, I've started referring to Scarlett's vagina.
Oh, okay then. I think is that as good?
Spoilers.
I think that's as good a point. I think Scarlett's vagina is probably as good a point as any.
I think saying vagina on this podcast is the Godwin's law of this.
Yeah, of the podcast. Yeah. When James said the Godwin's law, he did a little tiny
involuntary
Hitler salute,
which
was funny. Because Hitler's hilarious.
He had his moments, didn't he?
Yeah,
he was great in the Dictator.
I like it when he's hanging off the clock.
Yeah, I like that too.
The building falls down. And there's one window, and he's just stood there in the one window.
And he's in that car, and all the panels and wheels fall off, and he's left there just holding a steering wheel.
The thing that people don't know about the thing where Hitler, the front of the house falls down, and Hitler's left there with the window, is they got through like 7 Hitlers.
Yeah,
doing that.
Yeah, imagine how bad the first 7 were.
Pretty bad. Not as good as the Hitler we were left with, obviously. So should we go?
Yeah, go on then.
Do you have any plans for the rest of your day?
Yeah, I'm going to carry on playing Total War and trying to forget.
I think we're going. Trying to forget what?
I forget.
I think we're going swimming this afternoon, so
Lovely.
That should be nice.
Yeah.
It's getting a bit cold though. Have you noticed?
It's fresh.
Yeah.
But I sat outside at 6 o'clock this morning in a t-shirt. Felt fine. Very mild morning, but that's not that interesting. As opposed to the previous hour.
Shall we go, James?
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I've got a factoid about the Bovington Tank
Another
Museum.
factoid. This is your factoid episode.
Lawrence of Arabia lived in that area towards the end of his life, and there's a corner. As you turn down, you either carry on straight along for Monkey World or the village called Wool, which is just after it, or you turn right to Bovington Tank Museum. On that corner of the right turn is where Lawrence of Arabia died.
Oh,
in a motorcycle accident.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realise he lived around there.
Yeah.